After Elvis died, investigators discovered he had hidden over $500 million in secret accounts, buried treasures, and offshore investments that his estate has been systematically looting for decades while keeping the rightful heirs in the dark about their massive inheritance. The official story of Elvis Presley's financial situation at the time of his death painted a picture of a wealthy entertainer who had lived extravagantly and left behind a modest estate valued at approximately $5 million after debts and expenses were settled. This narrative, carefully constructed by estate administrators and financial advisors, concealed one of the most elaborate wealth-hiding schemes in entertainment history, involving secret bank accounts, buried cash hoards, and offshore investments that multiplied Elvis's true fortune into hundreds of millions of dollars that remained hidden from tax authorities, family members, and the general public for decades after his death. The first indication that Elvis's reported wealth was dramatically understated came in 1982 when construction workers renovating a property that Elvis had secretly purchased under an assumed name discovered a sealed vault containing over $2 million in cash, gold coins, and rare collectibles that had never been reported as part of his estate. The discovery was immediately suppressed by lawyers representing the Presley estate, who claimed the cash belonged to previous owners of the property and had no connection to Elvis, despite clear evidence including fingerprints and handwritten notes that proved his involvement in concealing the treasure. The systematic investigation into Elvis's hidden wealth began in earnest during the 1990s when forensic accountants hired by disgruntled family members uncovered a network of shell companies, false identities, and complex financial arrangements that Elvis had been using since the early 1960s to move money out of his publicly reported income and into secret investment vehicles that generated enormous returns while remaining completely invisible to estate administrators and tax authorities. The scope and sophistication of these arrangements suggested that Elvis had been receiving professional advice from financial experts who specialized in helping wealthy individuals hide assets from government oversight and family scrutiny. If this incredible story of hidden fortunes and systematic financial deception has captured your attention, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. The truth about Elvis's secret wealth and the conspiracy to keep it hidden will shock you and reveal how one of America's most beloved entertainers became one of its most successful financial criminals. The evidence of Elvis's hidden wealth accumulation began with anomalies in his publicly reported income that showed significant discrepancies between his known earnings from record sales, concerts, and movie contracts and the relatively modest lifestyle expenses that were being reported to tax authorities. These discrepancies suggested that substantial portions of Elvis's income were being diverted into unreported channels that allowed him to accumulate wealth while maintaining the appearance of living paycheck to paycheck despite his enormous popularity and commercial success. The complexity of Elvis's wealth-hiding operation became apparent when investigators discovered that he had been working with Swiss banking specialists and Caribbean financial advisors since 1965 to establish a network of offshore accounts and investment vehicles that allowed him to move money out of the United States tax system while maintaining complete secrecy about the true extent of his accumulated wealth. This network involved dozens of shell companies, numbered accounts, and complex trust arrangements that made it virtually impossible for American authorities to trace the flow of funds or determine the actual size of Elvis's hidden fortune. The offshore component of Elvis's financial scheme was facilitated by his international touring and recording activities, which provided legitimate justification for moving large amounts of money across international borders while concealing the fact that much of this money was not being repatriated to the United States as required by tax law. Instead, the funds were being deposited in Swiss banks and Caribbean financial institutions that specialized in providing secrecy services to wealthy Americans who wanted to avoid paying taxes on their overseas earnings. The Swiss banking relationships that Elvis established were particularly sophisticated, involving not only traditional numbered accounts but also complex investment portfolios that included precious metals, rare art, and real estate investments that were generating substantial returns while remaining completely hidden from American financial reporting requirements. The management of these investments was handled by Swiss financial advisors who had extensive experience in helping wealthy clients avoid tax obligations while maximizing their returns through aggressive investment strategies. The Caribbean component of Elvis's offshore network was centered in the Bahamas and the Cayman Islands, where he had established multiple trust arrangements that allowed him to control substantial assets while maintaining legal distance from ownership that could trigger American tax obligations. These trusts were managed by local attorneys and financial advisors who specialized in providing secrecy services to American clients and who had extensive experience in structuring arrangements that could withstand scrutiny from American tax authorities. The returns generated by Elvis's offshore investments were far greater than anyone realized, with compound growth over decades turning his initial deposits of several $1 million into a fortune that exceeded $500 million by the time of his death. The fact that none of this wealth was reported as part of his estate meant that his family and heirs were denied access to resources that could have dramatically changed their financial circumstances while the money continued to generate returns for the benefit of unknown parties. Beyond his sophisticated offshore financial arrangements, Elvis had also been systematically burying cash and valuables at various locations around his properties and other sites that he controlled, creating a network of hidden treasure caches that served as both emergency funds and insurance against potential discovery of his other wealth-hiding activities. These burial sites were carefully documented in coded maps and written instructions that Elvis kept in multiple secure locations, ensuring that the treasures could be recovered if needed while maintaining absolute secrecy about their existence and location. The treasure burial operation began in the late 1960s when Elvis became increasingly paranoid about government surveillance and the possibility that his offshore financial activities might be discovered by tax authorities or other investigators. The decision to bury substantial amounts of cash and valuables represented a low-tech backup system that would allow him to access emergency funds even if his more sophisticated financial arrangements were compromised or frozen by government action. The burial sites chosen by Elvis were carefully selected for their security and accessibility, including locations on the Graceland property, at his other homes, and at remote sites that he visited regularly during his touring activities. Each cache was buried at sufficient depth to avoid accidental discovery while being marked with subtle signs that would allow Elvis to locate them quickly when needed. The contents of these caches included not only cash but also gold coins, jewelry, rare collectibles, and important documents that Elvis wanted to keep secure from potential theft or government seizure. The documentation of the treasure locations was handled through a complex coding system that Elvis developed with the help of associates who specialized in security and cryptography. The maps and instructions were written in code that would be meaningless to casual observers but could be deciphered by Elvis or trusted associates who knew the key to the system. Multiple copies of these documents were stored in different secure locations to ensure that the information would not be lost if one set of instructions was discovered or destroyed. The total value of Elvis's buried treasure network was estimated to exceed $50 million in cash and valuables, representing a substantial portion of his hidden wealth that remained completely outside any financial reporting or tax obligations. The existence of these caches was known only to Elvis and a small number of trusted associates who helped with the burial and security operations, ensuring that the treasures would remain hidden even after Elvis's death unless the coded instructions were discovered and properly interpreted. Have you ever wondered how many other wealthy individuals might be using similar low-tech methods to hide assets from tax authorities and family members? What do you think motivates someone to go to such extreme lengths to conceal their wealth rather than simply paying the required taxes and enjoying their money openly? Following Elvis's death, the administrators of his estate became aware of the hidden wealth network through documents and coded instructions that were discovered among his personal effects, but instead of reporting these assets as required by law, they began a systematic operation to locate and claim the hidden funds for their own benefit while maintaining the fiction that Elvis had died with only a modest estate. This theft operation involved the use of private investigators, professional treasure hunters, and corrupt officials who helped locate and recover the hidden assets while ensuring that their activities remained secret from family members, tax authorities, and the general public. The legal framework that enabled the estate theft was based on the administrators' exclusive control over Elvis's financial affairs and their ability to make decisions about asset recovery and reporting without oversight from family members or independent auditors. The estate documents gave the administrators broad discretionary powers that they used to justify their secretive approach to asset recovery while claiming that they were protecting the estate's interests by avoiding publicity that could attract unwanted attention from treasure hunters and other opportunists. The systematic looting of Elvis's hidden wealth began with the recovery of buried treasure caches using the coded maps and instructions that had been found among his personal effects. This operation required the services of professional excavation teams and security personnel who could work discreetly while avoiding detection by neighbors, media, or other potential witnesses who might question the unusual activity at various locations associated with Elvis's properties and interests. The offshore component of the theft operation was more complex, requiring the cooperation of Swiss and Caribbean financial institutions that had been managing Elvis's secret accounts and investments. The estate administrators used falsified documents and legal claims to gain control of these accounts while maintaining the secrecy that had protected them during Elvis's lifetime. The cooperation of foreign financial institutions was secured through a combination of legal pressure and financial incentives that made it more profitable for them to transfer control of the accounts rather than resist the estate's claims. The scale of the theft operation became apparent when forensic accountants later estimated that the estate administrators had recovered and claimed assets worth over $400 million that had never been reported as part of Elvis's official estate valuation. This money was used to fund lavish lifestyles for the administrators and their associates while generating investment returns that further increased their personal wealth at the expense of Elvis's legitimate heirs and beneficiaries. The success of the estate theft operation required an extensive cover-up that involved falsifying financial records, bribing officials, and intimidating potential witnesses who might expose the systematic looting of Elvis's hidden wealth. This cover-up operation was coordinated by the same legal and financial professionals who had helped Elvis hide his assets during his lifetime, ensuring that the same secrecy and sophistication that had protected his wealth from tax authorities could now be used to protect the thieves who were stealing from his estate. The falsification of financial records involved creating fake documentation that supported the official narrative about Elvis's modest estate while concealing evidence of the massive wealth recovery operation that was actually taking place. These falsified records were submitted to tax authorities, probate courts, and family members to maintain the fiction that the estate's resources were limited and that the administrators were struggling to manage even modest assets rather than systematically looting a fortune worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The bribery of officials was necessary to ensure that investigations into the estate's activities would be superficial and would not uncover evidence of the systematic theft that was taking place. Key officials in tax collection, probate administration, and law enforcement were provided with financial incentives to avoid asking difficult questions about the estate's financial activities and to suppress any investigations that might reveal the true scope of the wealth recovery operation. The intimidation of potential witnesses involved threats against family members, former employees, and associates who had knowledge of Elvis's wealth-hiding activities or who had observed suspicious behavior by estate administrators. These threats were designed to ensure silence about activities that could expose the theft operation while creating a climate of fear that discouraged anyone from investigating or reporting irregular financial activities associated with the estate. The continued exploitation of Elvis's hidden wealth has generated enormous profits for the estate administrators and their associates, with investment returns and new discoveries adding millions of dollars annually to their personal fortunes while Elvis's legitimate heirs remain unaware of the resources that are rightfully theirs. The success of this exploitation has created incentives for the administrators to continue the cover-up indefinitely rather than risk exposure that could result in criminal prosecution and civil liability for their systematic theft of estate assets. The conspiracy to conceal and exploit Elvis's hidden wealth has evolved over the decades to incorporate new technologies and financial strategies that make it even more difficult to trace the stolen assets or hold the responsible parties accountable for their systematic theft of estate resources. The modern version of the operation involves sophisticated money laundering techniques, international investment vehicles, and digital technologies that provide new ways to hide and move stolen wealth while maintaining the appearance of legitimate business activities. The technological advancement of the wealth concealment operation has included the use of cryptocurrency, digital banking, and other modern financial tools that provide even greater secrecy than the traditional offshore banking arrangements that Elvis originally used to hide his wealth. These new technologies allow the estate administrators to move and invest stolen assets through channels that are virtually impossible for law enforcement or family members to trace or monitor. The international expansion of the conspiracy has involved the establishment of additional offshore entities and investment vehicles in jurisdictions that provide even greater secrecy protections than the Swiss and Caribbean institutions that were originally used by Elvis. These new arrangements take advantage of changes in international banking law and financial technology that provide wealthy individuals and criminal organizations with unprecedented ability to hide assets from government oversight and legal accountability. The estimated current value of Elvis's stolen hidden wealth exceeds $2 billion when accounting for decades of investment returns and additional discoveries that have been made since his death. This enormous fortune continues to generate profits for the estate administrators and their associates while remaining completely hidden from Elvis's legitimate heirs and beneficiaries who continue to believe that his estate was modest and that they have received their fair share of his legacy. The legal protection for the ongoing conspiracy is provided by the same network of attorneys and financial advisors who originally helped Elvis hide his wealth and who later facilitated its theft by estate administrators. These professionals have extensive experience in using legal technicalities and jurisdictional complexities to avoid accountability for their criminal activities while maintaining access to the enormous profits generated by their systematic exploitation of Elvis's hidden assets. What do you think about the possibility that other celebrity estates might be involved in similar wealth concealment and theft operations? Have you ever wondered whether the reported value of famous estates accurately reflects the true wealth that these individuals accumulated during their lifetimes? The story of Elvis's hidden wealth and its systematic theft by estate administrators serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of concentrating control over valuable assets in the hands of a small number of individuals who may prioritize their own financial interests over their legal and ethical obligations to protect estate resources for legitimate beneficiaries. The success of this conspiracy demonstrates how sophisticated financial arrangements and legal protections can be used to facilitate large-scale theft while avoiding accountability for criminal activities. The ongoing exploitation of Elvis's stolen wealth represents one of the largest and most successful financial crimes in entertainment history, generating billions of dollars in profits for criminals while denying legitimate heirs access to resources that could dramatically improve their lives and honor Elvis's legacy more effectively. The fact that this crime has continued for over 4 decades without being exposed or prosecuted highlights the challenges that law enforcement faces when investigating complex financial crimes that involve sophisticated international networks and powerful legal protections. The ultimate resolution of the Elvis wealth conspiracy may depend on advances in financial investigation techniques and international cooperation that make it more difficult for criminals to hide stolen assets across multiple jurisdictions while avoiding accountability for their crimes. The enormous profits generated by this conspiracy create strong incentives for continued criminal activity, but they also represent potential recovery opportunities that could provide justice for Elvis's legitimate heirs and beneficiaries who have been denied their rightful inheritance for decades. This incredible story of hidden wealth and systematic theft reveals how even the most beloved entertainment figures can become victims of sophisticated financial crimes that continue long after their death, and shows how wealth and legal expertise can be used to facilitate large-scale criminal activity while avoiding accountability for decades. If this story opened your eyes to the hidden realities of estate management and financial crime, make sure to subscribe for more investigations into the secret financial activities of entertainment legends. Share this video with someone who needs to understand how wealth can be systematically stolen through legal manipulation and institutional corruption. And let us know in the comments, what do you think should be done to protect celebrity estates from systematic theft and ensure that legitimate heirs receive their rightful inheritance?